Hello, crafty scrappers. It's Kate. I'm back again on my mission to catch up and get you all the sketches that you paid for. So today we're going to be doing a sketch. I'm taking a little break from my Nashville album. I'm doing a sketch with pictures of Violet that I took over the weekend. And I'm using the sketch on page 53. This is a very specific type of theme where you use the circle punch to make the border. And the interpretation of it that was done for the blog post was for the baby collection when it initially came out, Sweet Lullaby, I think it's called. And there was an instruction on how to make the X's and O's with strips of paper and so on. I'm going to take yet another twist on it today, and I'm not going to use the circles, and I'm not going to make the X's and O's. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But at first blush, let's break down what this sketch is. At first blush, it looks like a lot of separate pieces that create your little background here, but it's actually not. It's actually the 12 by 12 piece of paper, and then an 8 3/4 inch square, an 8 1/2 inch square, and then a border that's made to go across there, and then your photos to go on top. So that's what we're going to work on, and I'm going to take you to the next level of gutting paper. So listen up, Eileen. Here's your chance to learn a little something new than just the 1-inch frame. All right, so let's start with that. I am going to be using the Feeling Bright collection, which was one of the secret boxes. And I really like this paper. It's full of clouds and rainbows and suns and all kinds of good stuff. But we're gonna start with a gutting technique. We do it lots of times where we line it up at the 1 inch and then we use this line and we just make a 1-inch gut of the paper, and that creates the background. But if you look at this sketch, you have more background paper than that showing. So I calculated out, and actually I want to use this side of the paper too for part of this border in the center. And in order to do that, I know it has to be 8 1/2 inches wide. I'm sorry about my cat. She's decided this is a really good time to play with a noisy toy. I apologize. At any rate, we're going to be doing the 8 1/2 inch wide box that's going to come out of here. Now that's okay, because there's an 8 3/4 inch piece of cardstock that's going to mount this. So it's going to cover up that hole. So we need to do the math, right? If we're going to have an 8 1/2 inch section that comes out of the middle, then we have to subtract 8 1/2 from 12, which leaves 3 1/2 inches. And then we have to split that in half to get our side measurement. That comes out to 1 3/4. So the 1 3/4, it's pretty easy on the 12-inch trimmer, because the 1 3/4 edge is the last line that's to the right of the cutting surface. So that's easy enough. And then what I like to do is, when I'm doing something that's not the obvious that I usually do, I like to put a line on my trimmer. I just use my journaling pen and I put a dot there, and I put a dot down here. And this way it's easier for me to see when I'm looking at it from the side, so that I know I'm starting and ending in the right place. So then I'm going to line my paper up at the 1 3/4 mark, and I'm going to go up to that mark that I made on the metal, and I'm going to slide down to the other mark that I made on the metal, and I will continue around the other 3 sides. Now, just so you know, the marks that you make on the metal surface, the stainless surface of the trimmer, you can rub off with your finger, so you don't have to worry about it being difficult to remove those. They basically last as long as you need them for the project at hand, and then they're going to wear right off anyway, just from regular use, so no problem there. Okay, so there is my center cut that I've done. And I usually need to take a pair of scissors and just make sure a little snip at each corner to complete the cut. I would rather do this than go way over and have slits in the paper that are going to show when I put my other piece on top of it. And because of the fact that there's not a huge amount of overflow here, 8.5 to 8 3/4, I want to be as precise as I can with those cuts. So I would rather aim a little bit shy and make the extra trim. But now I have my sunburst paper, which I'm going to be able to use for part of that border piece. Right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a piece of the cardstock to cut my 8 3/4 square that's going to go in the center that everything else is going to be mounted on. So I'm not going to bother to gut this paper. I'm just going to go forward pretty straightforward and make that 8 3/4 cut, because I have plenty of cardstock and I don't need to gut a piece and then save the frame for whenever I might need it. So my 8 3/4 square is just going to cover that opening. So this is a prime time to point out again that you don't want to put your adhesive on the back of this, because there's a high likelihood that when you put it down here, you're going to have excess adhesive showing, or not showing through, but exposed in the opening. So then when you turn the whole page over, you're going to end up having spots that have adhesive on them but nothing to stick to, which means they're going to stick to other things in your bag as you go back and forth from a crop, or in your container that you store your pages in until you're ready to apply them. So if you're not working on your album right away, that's something to keep in mind. If you are working on your album right away, it probably doesn't really matter that much, because you're going to go ahead and apply this to the page right away. Now what I'm doing is I'm using the repositionable adhesive here, and I'm intentionally hanging it over the edge because I just want a very thin line. And that's actually going to do two things for me here. The first thing is it's going to be the adhesive for the cardstock, and it's also going to hold this paper in place on my mat, which is going to help me with my straight line placement once I get into these border pieces on here, that I want to make sure I line up evenly on both sides. So I'm not going to rub away all of the excess adhesive on the back of that paper until I am good and ready. Okay, so the next thing I'm doing here is I'm just kind of eyeball playing with this until I get it where I want it. And now it's sticking and I've got it crooked. Go me. All right, let's see here. Tool time. Where's my, here it is. Okay. All right. So I want to make sure that I've got my placement straight here, because once I get it in place, everything else, all the other lines I'm going to follow come out from there. So now on the top, what I can do is I can rub around the outside edge of this, and it will take off any repositionable adhesive that I did get beyond the border of where I wanted to place my cardstock, and that'll help you clean up quick. So that's one of the biggest pluses about the repositionable adhesive, is that it gives you that kind of flexibility. And you don't have to spend a lot of time finding the edges of the adhesive rectangles on the regular adhesive, folding them under, disguising them. I know I sound like a run-on commercial for the repositionable adhesive, but it really is the best stuff. All right, this is another piece of the kit that I actually had from another project that I did, and it turns out to be just the right size. It is an 8.5 inch square. So this is going to be the background piece that I'm going to use here. So I'll go ahead and apply that. And this actually is a little bit directional. It probably, nope. It is directional, because you have the flat sides of your clouds, which act as the bottom of some of them. So you want to make sure that you actually are putting that on right side up. And that's my pro tip for today. You can do any of these sketches with any pack of paper or any collection that you want to. But you do want to be aware of anything that is directional, and you want to make sure you plan for that. So if you're cutting a horizontal piece, your pattern isn't going sideways when you apply it. So it's always a good idea to check for that. All right, so for my next trick, so let's refer back to the sketch at this point. We have the 12-inch piece, the 8 3/4 piece, which is the blue cardstock, and then the pattern paper on top of it. So now I want to create this border here. And I think, let's see, do I want to use the blue here again? I don't know if I do per se. But I might want to use the striping. I do like the stripe. Okay, so that's going to be one layer of it. And then we end up with, we need a total of 3 layers here. And I know I want the sun to be the top layer. So let's build it backwards from there. And I think from that point, let's see, I have some other scraps here. Let's see if I can make enough. See, this is one of those directional prints. I'd love to use this, but it's not 8.5 wide. Although, okay, here's the plan. I am going to use this rainbow paper, and I'm going to play the trick game, where if you take a look at the sketch, underneath this photo, I could actually split that paper to the sides so no one will ever know that there's a chunk missing in the center. That's how we're going to do it, and we're going to see how it rolls. So that being the case, let's build from the bottom up. For this section, for these white thin edges here, that's an 8.5 by 3-inch piece, which I'm going to use the stripe for. So that'll be the base. And let me just double check and make sure that this is actually 8.5. It is. That's good. Good news. Okay. So let's cut our 8.5 by 3. And then what's the next measurement? The next measurement is 8.5 by 2.5. So that's going to be the width of this one, the 2.5. It's actually going to be the height. Okay. And then in order to get the full run, I'm going to cut 2 pieces of it. I do have enough for that. So that will give me enough to create the border without you being able to see the seam. All right, so this is the width we're working with, and this is the piece that's going to sit here. So let's go ahead and attach this. There we go. Hopefully you didn't get too much of the top of my head there. I always forget that I have to be careful when I lean over something. All right. So there we go. Now, I think because I have so much overlap, I'm just going to freeform cut some of this off so that it's actually hidden over towards the direction where the picture is going to cover that up. And that will make sure that I look seamless all the way across. And on top of that, I'm actually going to put my sun paper too. I probably didn't have to do that because I'm going to have this as a buffer. But okay, so this one is going to be an 8 by 2-inch piece. So you can tell that sometimes I have them more prepared than other times. Today is one of those wing it occasions. All right. So this creates the base border that goes over the kind of matted section in the center of the page. Okay, and that's going to go like this. And this is the 8.5 width, so you're still going to get the blue cardstock that goes all the way around it. And I like that. That's good. That's what I wanted to have happen. All right, so as far as positioning goes, you can see that there is about 1/2 inch of the base paper underneath there. So I think that looks pretty good there, just as an eyeball. I'm going to go ahead and attach that. Okay, so that creates the base for my layout. The next thing I'm going to make room for here is the photo mats. And these photos are cut down a little bit. They are 5.5 by 3 3/4 instead of 4 by 6. And I have to go pick up the photos, so you'll see them in the finished version of it. But what you'll actually see is that I'm going to end up having 4 vertical 3x4s instead of 2 horizontal 5.5 by 3 3/4. So I'm also doing a little twist on my version of that. Maybe I can use those as the photo mats. That'll be cute. That'll give me some contrast. All right, so we need, for photo mats, we need them to be 3 7/8 by 5 5/8. So 3 7/8 is going to be the height. Do I have enough? Well, I think I'm only going to have 1 photo mat out of this, but that's okay. There'll be the contrast. All right. And then the width on it is going to be 5 7/8, right? No, 5 5/8 by 3 7/8. So, okay. 5 5/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So right there. No, 5 5/8. Let me think this through. It's 1 tick past the 1/2 inch. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, right there. All right. So this will act as one of my photo mats, and then I'll have the 2 vertical pieces on there. And then let's see. For the other photo mat, is this? This is a little bit shy, but just a little bit. I think I'm going to make this work, because I really like this color. Okay, so my photo mats will go something like this. And that will make sure. I'll decide once I get the pictures on here, actually, which one I want to be on top. In the picture, it shows the top one over the top. But depending on your photo, you might actually want to put the bottom one on top so that you don't cover up anybody's head or anything like that. So that's going to be my photo mats. And then I'm not going to adhere them just yet, because I do want to wait for the photos and make sure that I like what I've got going on there. But now comes the part that I told you we would get back to before. This isn't really a tool tip, but this is kind of a stash tip. And my stash tip for this, do you guys recognize these? You know, the alphabet stickers that have almost nothing left on them, and you doggedly hang on to them in case you need them someday. Well, today is the day. This is what I'm going to use in place of the polka dots or the big dots all around the outside. So I'm just going to start randomly positioning those ABC letters, all the way around the edge. And it's going to be a lot of the letters that you tend not to use, like the Q and the J and the V and things like that. So this way you can actually create not really a pattern, but you can create a united type of embellishment by intentionally mixing things up. What I'm doing right now is I'm going to go color by color, and I'm going to spread them around the whole 12-inch edge so that I don't end up with all the reds clumped in one place and all the greens clumped up in another place and so on. So I'm not going to do all of this on camera because that's pretty boring for you to watch. But once I post the video, then I'll post along with it, you know, my picture of the final product, so you'll get to see how the whole thing comes out. And that will have the hashtag on it and everything. I really hope that you try this, in particular, this ABC usage, because who doesn't have leftover ABC stickers? And, you know, you keep taking them out because they're the perfect color and you're missing one letter or two letters to make your title. So this is a great way to use them up and feel like you've done something creative with them as well. Can't wait to see what you try, and have a great week.